Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Vinyl Den, your channel for record collecting by record collectors. I'm Nick. Today, I'm talking about whether or not punk can rule in 2024. There's a bunch of links down below. Make sure you check them out. There's links for the Vinyl Den Facebook group, for the merch page, for the Spotify and Apple Music playlist I put together every week, and the Patreon page. Make sure you go check all that out. Of course, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified every time I release new episodes. So if you've been watching the channel for a while, you know I'm a huge punk fan. I have been for, I guess, it's 30 years now. I think it was the summer of 94. You had all those great punk albums that came out, whether it was, Dookie came out that year, Smash by the Offspring came out, Punk and Drublet came out that year, Let's Go by Rancid, I think Stranger Than Fiction came out that year. Just a bunch of great punk albums came out in 1994. And that's really what made me love punk music. And I still listen to it pretty regularly today. But going over what I've seen happen so far this year, and really what's kind of happened over the last couple of years, where you're seeing punk make more inroads into mainstream music. And you've got a lot of great punk music, a lot of great punk albums that have been released over the last couple of years, whether it's Tomorrow Never Comes by the new album from Rancid, which is a great album. But Bomb Pop's released, Death of Venice Beach, Get Dead released, Dancing with the Curse, which is an incredible punk album. A lot of great punk music. But then there's also a lot of punk adjacent stuff that you've seen come through in the mainstream. Whether you get Demi Lovato releasing punk music, Olivia Rodrigo, both Sour and Guts, both had a lot of really, there was definitely songs on both of those albums that had a heavy punk influence to them. And then you've got artists like Machine Gun Kelly. Yeah, I understand he's not a punk artist. He never will. I don't think anyone looks at him that way. But he released two punk adjacent albums. Both sold really well. They're both number one albums. And music like that you're seeing making inroads in the mainstream music that you just really haven't seen a whole lot happen over the last 20, 25 years. That you've seen these huge inroads happen the last couple of years. And now so far in 2024, you're seeing a bunch of great punk albums already getting released, and there's potentially some really great ones coming up later this year. And I understand that we'll never have 1994 over again. We'll never see those kind of sales. I mean, Smash was I think it still is the highest selling independent album of all time, which is a punk album. That's the Offspring album, came out in 94. Dookie came out in 94, and it was the highest selling punk album of all time. It sold 20, 25 million copies. I know we're never going to see those again. But what I want to see happen is, to have this big explosion, to have all these bands. I want to see some of this reach into the mainstream. We've already had a couple mainstream albums get released and have success this year. But to get those mainstream inroads, I know a lot of punk fans don't want to see that happen. But that's how we get we get more and more of these young and upcoming bands like Scooped Up, which I'm going to talk about. Stankfinger is another up-and-coming band that I loved what I've heard from this year. And I want to see more of that happen over the next couple of years. I think 2024 has the potential of being a huge year that could be dominated by punk music. Like I said, we've had a couple of those mainstream successes. Of course, the new Green Day album, Saviors. I really like the album. The more I listen to it, the more I like it. I think it was top. I think it ended up being number 4 on the Billboard charts when it got released. And this is the kind of music I want to see out in the mainstream. I want to see some of these bands having some of that mainstream success to really kind of help pull some of those younger bands that aren't getting the publicity that a bigger band like Green Day is getting. Having that mainstream success will cause them to have more success also. An album that I've loved so far this year, I think it's probably my favorite album of the year so far, is Blood, Hair, and Eyeballs, the new album from Alkaline Trio. And I'm someone that's never been a huge Alkaline Trio fan. I liked the last couple of albums, but I think Blood, Hair, and Eyeballs, I think, is the best thing that they've done in, probably 10, 15 years. It's just an album that I don't think this had the success as that Saviors did. Obviously, Green Day is a bigger name than Alkaline Trio, but it's, bands like this, they're having that success that can help push along a lot of the smaller bands. A smaller band that I know a lot of people aren't a huge fan of, Neck Deep. I really enjoyed the self-titled album from Neck Deep that came out in January also. I think this came out the same day as Saviors. And Neck Deep is a band that I've kind of gotten more into over the last couple of years. And I really do enjoy this album. I don't think it's the band's best album, but it's, like I said, it's just another one of those albums so far this year that's kind of helping push some of this music forward. Like with that Neck Deep album, I think the thing that helps Neck Deep is they're a little bit more like on the poppier side of pop punk, whereas some of the other albums I'm going to talk about are much more heavier. That it might be harder for them to have the mainstream success that maybe like a Neck Deep can have. One album that I've loved, and I'm not a fan of this style of punk. I'm not a big hardcore punk fan. I'm not a big street punk fan, but this is What a Fucking Nightmare by The Chisel. This just came out, I think it was last week this album came out. And I've listened to this thing probably half a dozen times since it came out. And like I said, I'm not a big fan of that harder edge punk music, but some really great tracks on here. And this is kind of a different avenue for punk music, and one that I think they can still make some inroads. And this is as, some albums, some of these other bands come up and have a little more success, they kind of drag along a band like The Chisel. Another album I've absolutely loved since it was released earlier this year is from a band called Stankfinger. The album is called Three Finger Discount. This is one that's not available on CD or on vinyl. Yeah, I do have the vinyl on pre-order through their website, but I'm not sure. I don't even think they have a release date for the physical copy of it yet. But I've streamed it a bunch of times since it was released. Absolutely love this album. They're an English punk band, kind of like, I guess if you take like early Blink with some No Effects and then like some Less Than Jake, because it's got some ska influence on a lot of the album. It's a really fantastic album to go through and listen to it. I highly recommend checking that one out. Another one that I just recently came across is The Runs by Scooped Up. Kind of similar. I guess they're like early Blink with some maybe like early MXPX, got a little bit harder edge than some of the other like than like Neck Deep does. But another album I absolutely love. Spun this one pretty regularly. As you can see, I've been listening to a lot of punk music so far this year. Another one that I just recently got into, and it's kind of long. It's not as heavy as a Chisel, but it's probably a little heavier than a lot of my punk music is. And that is the new album from Generation X at Lifer. I'm not sure if this was, I don't remember if this came out late last year or very beginning part of this year, but another one that I absolutely love. Highly recommend checking this one out. This is like punk meets metal, kind of is maybe the best way to describe it, but just a fantastic album. I think it's the big thing to look at, like the big picture of punk music over the last couple of years. Is you've seen different genres or different subgenres of punk music gain inroads into the mainstream, and you're seeing more and more punk bands form and release new music. Like I said, Stankfinger, Generation Exit, The Chisel. I think The Chisel is a pretty new band. Those are all some really great new bands that you can check out. They're doing really great music, along with of course there's other bands that popped up over the last 10 or so years, whether it's Rise Up. I think it's 10 or 15 years they've been around. Neck Deep, which I already mentioned. There is stuff that's been kind of growing underground over the last decade and a half, but I think you're kind of seeing a lot of that kind of boil up now. So that's just the stuff that's come out over the first couple of months of the year. I think there's a lot of stuff that's coming out later this year. Well, we know the new Sum 41 album, Heaven and Hell, is coming out on March 29th. I'm not the biggest Sum 41 fan, but I like the couple of tracks I think I've heard off it so far. You do have the new Blowfuse album, The Fourth Wall, coming out on March 1st. They're another band that's definitely worth checking out if you're unfamiliar with their music. No Effects is supposed to be releasing half album. I know they're done touring later this year. Hopefully they'll finish up half album and release that. It was supposed to be out last year. I think it was supposed to come out. So we're waiting on that new NoFX album to come out. Less Than Jake is supposed to be releasing a new album this year. There's rumor that The Offspring is working on a new album that's supposed to come out later this year. Mod Sun is one of those artists that kind of like Machine Gun Kelly, even though Mod Sun has a little more street cred in rock music than Machine Gun Kelly does, because he was the drummer for Scary Kids Scaring Kids when he first started out. But I'm interested. He's supposed to be releasing a new album this year. He's kind of gone down multiple paths so far in his career. But what was the album he released a couple years ago, which is called Internet Killed the Rock Star. Fantastic album. It definitely heads a lot of punk adjacent music on that one. I'm not really calling that one a punk album, but it definitely had a lot of punk feel to it. So I'm definitely interested to see what path he goes down with that new album. And we're also supposed to be getting a new album from Social Distortion, which is a band I've absolutely loved for a long time. And we've been waiting for a new album from them for probably 10 years now. That Mike Ness has been saying he's been working on new music, but I think we're getting closer. Hopefully we'll see something from all those bands throughout the rest of the year this year. And just like in years past, I'm sure by the end of the year, there's going to be more than just those, 10 or 12 albums that kind of pop up and get released throughout the year that, maybe by the end of the year, beginning part of 2025, you're like, oh yeah, I didn't realize this album came out, and check it out, and you're going to absolutely love it. There's always at least, 3 or 4 of those albums that come out every year. The one album I can think of off the top of my head is Youth Fountain. Came out late last year. Discovered them. I don't remember if it was like the later part of December, early part of January. Absolutely love that album from last year. And that's, like I said, it's those bands that are kind of continuing that new wave to bring punk music, into the 2020s. That I think I hope to see more of that happen over the coming year. Well, that's all I got for today, guys. Thanks for checking the show out. Make sure you drop me a comment down below. I'd love to know what you guys think about where punk music is in 2024. I know there's a lot of people out there that think, there has been no good punk music that's been released since the 70s. I'd definitely make that an argument against that. But I love where punk music is right now. And you're seeing this diversity in punk music that I don't think we've seen, since the later part of the 90s, when punk started going in a bunch of different directions, and then a punk eventually broke up and turned a lot of those later 90s, early 2000s punk bands turned into emo bands, and I didn't really like where a lot of that went after that. But I got a lot of hope for where it is currently. I love a lot of the stuff that's come out this year, but let me know what you guys think. If you enjoy the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button down below. That's all I got. Until next time, keep on spinning. Peace.